And we're live on Love and Money Secrets TV. Welcome to today's show on a story of beautiful reformation and transformation. With us today, we have Wendy Morgan, someone who I've just begun to start to get to know over the last several months as a direct result of her wearing and using the stem cell activation patches, with which, as many of you know, I started to use as a tool in my practice with my patients and clients. Wendy, thank you for tuning in, tapping in, and turning on to today's show, and be willing to take time out of your very busy schedule. I know you're really, really busy, but taking time to share your story and how you learned about the stem cell activation patches and what things brought you to the point where you were willing and open to accept, receive, and embrace this life-saving technology.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me here, Dame. Really appreciate it. And I'm happy to be here. Hi, everybody. My name is Wendy Morgan, and I'm from Santa Barbara, California. I'm a holistic healthcare practitioner, been so for 30 plus years, also a spiritual mentor, and my license in that of the PT world. So I am very grateful to have found this wonderful application, as Dame has shared with you already. And it definitely has been a lifesaver for my family.
Fantastic. So before we dive in deep and get into the nitty gritty here, why don't you share with our audience a little bit about, where were you born and raised? Do you come from a very large family, a small family? Tell us a little bit about yourself before we jump into the deep.
Absolutely. No problem. Love to do so. So I'm actually born in Lompoc, California, but I was actually Air Force brat. We kind of went all over the place, and my years of growing up, so went from California to Florida, moved around there several times, and then up to Wisconsin, where my dad decided to open up a cattle ranch, and we had 15 quarter horses. It was a blessed life, honestly. We lived on 70 acres of land. And it's what every teenager should have, in my opinion. You can just go out, climb trees, make, forts, ride the horses, ride the cows. It was a really great life. And then from there, about 14 years of age, moved down to North Carolina, where my dad decided he wanted to open up a marina. Didn't work, but nevertheless, met some wonderful people, including my husband at that time. And then when of age, basically married him, had two wonderful kids, little girls. They are now definitely into their well adult years. And then I lived there for a little while, and then I moved back on my own after, realizing that that was not a meaningful relationship. So I left and moved out to California, where I went to school. Acquired 31 different certifications within alternative healing field. I went to school for physical therapy, and also along that line became a holistic healthcare practitioner and healer. And I've been a spiritual mentor in the way that I am an empath, 5-layer empath, and I've been channeling spirit since I've been a kid. It's just one of those gifts. If you want to call it a gift in the beginning, it wasn't a gift, but it's definitely something that's been with me my whole life. So I've been living here in California, Santa Barbara, California, for the past 33, 34 years. And love it. Really expensive, but love it. So yeah, that's basically my story right there. I apologize. I left out the best part of my life, which is back in 2005, I gave birth to my last child, another girl, and she's now 18. And I have my grandson living with me now, and he's 13. So, I always believe, keep kids around you because it keeps you young, guys. And I love kids. They're great.
That is so fantastic. Wow. So you have had quite the colorful life and lots of travel. What a dream to be on a 70-acre horse
Yeah.
ranch with 17 quarter horses.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yep.
like you're talking to
Yeah.
someone. I'm going to Aruba later this month, and I am so looking forward because one of the excursions that I signed up for, which I'm hoping it's every day, I'll be able to ride horses every day because I love horseback riding and I love
Yeah.
horses. So you must
Yeah.
have been in this dream world, pinching yourself all the time, being
Are
around
you kidding me? I
these
was a normal teenager. It's like, I have to get up at 5 and feed the
people horse.
cows.
Do
I
you have a
have to
horse?
feed the horses. It's 70 below zero. Are you kidding? Because it was Wisconsin. It gets a little cold up there. But I loved it because we had a river that ran through our property, and it was just really, I mean, those were the days, right? Where kids could be kids. And we baled our own hay. I mean, honestly, when I was 12 and 13, I was lifting up 100-pound bales and just throwing them up, on. And now it's like, okay, I can't do that anymore.
Wow, you were strong. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm not going to say you were strong. You've always been strong.
Well, we're getting back there, hopefully. But yeah, it's that my 15-year-old or 12-year-old self is definitely in there as a memory.
Wow, so you got good muscle memory for that. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward to what was the thing that brought you to the point where that just the concept of stem cells would have gotten on your radar, let alone the introduction of these incredible, little powerful, tiny, but very powerful. I like to call them, they're the equivalent of solar panels on your house, except we put them on your body. And
I
your
like that.
battery's the battery instead of the sun.
Mhm.
So, what was it that brought you to the point where you would be even looking into stem cells that got onto your awareness? And what was fast forward and kind of share with us a little few peeks about how that kind of unfolded for you?
I don't know how that's going to be a quick share, but we'll definitely go in that direction. So I was introduced to the so actually back up, in 2008, I was transferring him. I'm only 5'5", and I was transferring a 6'4" man into his bed at the hospital. And he was post a stroke victim, where with stroke, a lot of times their midline comes over here versus here. And so we had to retrain them to come back to the middle, but it was late in the evening or the afternoon, and he'd gone back to here. I was transferring him to the wrong side. And I picked him up, and he started leaning away from the bed. And in my book, I sacrificed myself. No one's going down on my shift. So I really just manhandled him, made sure he made it to the bed safely. But meanwhile, my back went pop and I herniated my disc. And so being in the field, you don't have surgery unless you are in dire need to have surgery. So I did everything under the sun. As I already alluded, I'm definitely into holistic health, holistic healing. And by 2016, I would say I started doing research 2015, 2016. I was like, why am I not applying my own knowledge? So I started increasing my my antioxidants, and making get a lot of omega-3s in my body to really bring down that inflammation to help me feel better. And I just gave birth to my last daughter in 2005. So, and I'm a single parent. So life was interesting, we'll just say. Thank God I was homeschooling my youngest daughter, so at least I didn't have to get up and take her to school and stuff.
Okay,
But nevertheless, about
pause
2006,
pause
go
button.
ahead.
So you're working full time, single parent, full time, holistic care practitioner, doing your physical therapy, patients and all that. And you're also doing that's another full time job to do homeschooling for a child.
Mm.
So you're doing three jobs at the same time. And now you're adding research studies on the side, right?
I'm a double Capricorn, no problem.
To do. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. I just had to hit the pause button if anybody missed that because Superwoman is definitely in your genetic code.
It sounds really busy, but I don't know. I've been a single parent my whole life. So I never stopped to look and say, this is really hard. I feel sorry for myself. I just need to be sad. And I was never that person.
No,
It's just like, no, you just got to get up and you just got to do it. And that's just the way life is.
Yeah.
So anyway, so 2015, 2016, I started doing a little more research, and that's what stepped me into the epigenetic world. So guys, in case you don't know, epigenetics is what can you do to change the expression of your genes. So back in the 80s and 90s, epigenetics became a really big thing, and everybody was spouting on Time magazine saying, you are born, basically, you are cursed with your mother's and father's genes. There's nothing you can do about it. And that's not true. They've now learned that's not true. The way your genes are expressed all have to do about your environment, what you think, what you feel, what you eat, et cetera, et cetera. And so if you are in the same environment, thinking the same thoughts, eating the same food as mom and dad, then you're more than likely, yes, you're going to replicate exactly what they're expressing as well. But nevertheless, I got involved with the epigenetic world, and I came across a certain product that did help my body and my pain go from 9 out of 10 down to 0 out of 10. And that was and it's not the product's important, guys. It's the steps. You got to think about the steps. The steps is what is important. And so moving right along 2015 as well, my mom got diagnosed with COPD. So COPD is where scarring basically increases in the lungs and continues to grow until basically suffocates the person to death, literally. And she wasn't really that bad off, but 2019, she started to have needing oxygen in order to, get the right amount of oxygen levels in her system. So, my nose hit that grindstone again, and I started doing a lot of research. And I know in the Western medicine, there is nothing they can do for these people, unfortunately. But I thought, you know what? I know there's got to be something natural. God is wonderful, and I know it's just a matter of finding that needle. Mm-hmm. And I did come across a study that said that these specific patches, here, guys, these specific patches basically activated your own body to make GHK copper peptide, which brought your stem cells out of hibernation and also making brand new stem cells to get them back to work. And they basically learned that it started to decrease the scar tissue. And so, Dame, I was just like, I just think I found the mother lode, right? This is amazing. But it was 2019. I didn't know anybody, who was involved, a representative of this company. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how can I go ahead and get my hands on these patches? So if you don't mind, I'm going to put a pen in that and go backwards a little bit, if that's okay with you. Yeah. It's actually a really cool spiritual story. So back in 2017, when I was with that other company, I got on an airplane. I met this woman, and this woman, it's like one of those soul connects guys, like when you see him, like, I know this person.
Yes.
I've seen him. I know him. Oh my gosh. I'm so happy to see you. You're just like, I don't know who the heck you are, but I know exciting. You. And literally we looked at each other and we immediately just hugged in the plane, and we're like, oh my God, it's so good to see you again. I didn't know this woman from Adam, didn't even know her name. And we pulled apart, and I'm like, oh my gosh. She goes, I can't believe we're here together again. And I'm like, I know. And then I looked down and I noticed her friend that she was with was somebody that I knew. And so basically her friend brought her on the plane, and we were both going to the same destination. That same person was Kathleen Nichols.
Oh my God. Oh, she is such a beautiful human being. I met her actually last August, and then I saw her again in Scottsdale, which was the last time I saw you too. Oh my gosh. Yeah, she is such a beautiful, wow, what a beautiful soul. Oh yeah. My gosh.
So fast forward to 2020, all of a sudden, my friend who was sitting in that, the airplane seat, I was helping her with different stuff. And she said, you know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and try out these patches. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been looking for these patches. And she says, yeah. She goes, my friend Kathleen Nichols is the one who's working with the company. She's a representative of the company. I'm like, I'm looking up. Now you're showing off.
I did the same thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're so funny. Or you're just showing off now. That is so funny you said that.
Oh, Lord.
Oh my gosh. So then what did she reply?
Oh yeah. So basically she puts, she connected us, and I talked to Kathleen, I can't believe, she goes, and to her words were, I was wondering when we were going to start working together. She goes, because I knew, and just as I felt but we were supposed to work together, and here it is. Voila, and what a heartfelt company anyway. So I found home, I found where I'm supposed to be, wonderful people. And here I am with Kathleen. And so that basically was the, personal journey then starting of these patches. But of course we purchased them, I put them on my mom, and I will continue that. But yeah, that in itself was a beautiful, miraculous, spirit showing off moment.
Okay, so this is a teaching moment, and I really do believe there's something that years ago, first of all, it's interesting you're talking and touching upon the topic of epigenetics. You and I did not have a conversation about what we were going to talk today, other than I wanted you to share your story. We didn't get into the nitty gritty. However, Bruce Lipton happens to be a friend of mine. When I had a radio show called The Bottom Line Show Live, he had written The Biology of Belief back in the 90s. So I had him as a guest on my show several times, yada, yada, yada. And one of the things when I read The Biology of Belief, and once I had Dr. Bruce on The Bottom Line Show Live, I remember thinking, I'm like, wait a minute. It's like you were doing stem cell research and stem cell cloning in the 60s before I was born. And when I did pre-med at USC, And genetics that was like one of the classes that separated the men from the boys, is what they would say, because a lot of people dropped out and never, the first
Mhm.
2.5 to 3 years, they're weeding out classes. And in genetics and any other physiology and anatomy, all my other classes, we were always taught that the cell nucleus was what controlled each cell, and that was the brain. And they never talked about epigenetics, even though epigenetics had already started
Mhm.
with Bruce back in the 60s. And he taught medical school throughout the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and so forth. So I was like, what the heck? So now I'm, out of, well, I've never been totally out of school because I still go to school. But the bottom line is, it's like, wait a minute, the first 10 years of my medical education, epigenetics was never brought up. How is this possible? And now we, of course, know, we're far more aware of the fact that it's, in fact, the cell membrane. If you look at
Mhm.
the membrane, it's memory brain
Mhm.
of the cell. And we know that it reacts with the environment that the cell is surrounded by. So I think that's very important, because obviously the stem cell activation patches do affect each cell. So
Well,
continue.
yeah,
Yeah.
literally reverses the aging process because you're taking the damaged cell and replacing it with a brand new cell, which goes down, which makes, I mean, talk about Bruce Lipton, he'd probably be totally ecstatic because he talks about the cilia, right? That's on the outside of the cell,
The
and
cell.
how that takes
Pulls.
information, and information comes to your life, guys, via vibration. Your thoughts are vibration, your emotions vibration, what you eat has a vibration, your environment has a vibration, and all of it's translated down and picked up by the cell via the cilia or the hairs on the outside of your cell.
Mm-hmm.
And through life, we all know that our cells, in essence, you can look at, go from a grape to a raisin by the time we're 80. It's kind of a really kind of, but it gives you a really good visual. But that's
Visual.
true, with the inflammation, the oxidative stress, the toxins, and the toxins are consistently doubling almost every single year, unfortunately. And we're not drinking enough water. And the fact is, our body cannot repair because the stem cells are in hibernation. I mean, yes, it will go from the grape to the raisin, but what happens in the process, if you have these hairs and through the damage, for those, I'm going to really age myself now, for those that remember antennas on the top of the house, whenever we had a storm, the antenna, were basically crossing, touching, broke, bent, you didn't pick up any reception. And the same thing goes with your cells, with those little cilia. If you can meditate all you want, you can eat the best food all you want, and it's going to create that change because your cilia are all bent. It's not really taking in that fine vibration, including spiritual vibration. But when you actually replace that damaged cell and the damaged cilia with a brand new plump grape, guys, brand new. Like when I started, I was 55 years young. And now I've got cells in my body that are literally 3 years old. Isn't that cool? And they've got cilia, they're standing up nice and taut. And so they're picking up all those wonderful vibrations. And I'll tell you, Dame, so, I already shared with you that I'm a spiritual mentor, and I pick up
Connected.
messages from spirit a lot. And I thought I was doing, of course, really good, being able to pick up. But around that 3 month mark, I could tell enough cells were replaced. Were almost on like this, it went from a moonroof to a sunroof to completely blown off the ceiling. And it was like, whoa, I'm really getting some really strong messages now. So that it really makes a difference with that ceiling. I know Bruce Lipton talks about that too.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're mentioning the fact that you're in the awareness, and you realize and recognize that your awareness and that your connection, your spiritual connection, and your consciousness has expanded. I have here in my hand, I happen to keep this to the right hand side because I'm always picking different things out of here. These are the 5 research papers that deal with I call the Fantastic Five, the 5 foundational patches that are good for everybody, no matter what their condition is, whether they're rejuvenating, whether
Mhm.
they're optimizing their body, or if they have any kind of chronic inflammatory condition, syndrome, symptom, diagnosis of any type sort. And in the one that has to do with eon, which is the master antioxidant, it has to do with master anti-inflammation in the body. It's what reduces the inflammation. The research study on eon actually talks about the researchers actually measured an expansion of awareness and consciousness in the subjects, which I was really surprised when I read the research paper that they would actually note that and measure that. But
Mhm.
there was no question that their awareness and their consciousness expanded. separate from, of course, their anti-inflammatories went up, so inflammation was managed and dropped significantly in all, not 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, but over the period of 4 weeks, all of them experienced a dramatic, quote unquote, significant decrease in inflammation. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because ultimately we're not like a puzzle where all the pieces of the puzzle are like scattered all over the place. We have all these different pieces of the puzzle, but the picture that creates the you, all those puzzle pieces are together. And make no mistakes, our consciousness, our mindfulness, our spiritual aspects of the energy being that we are is part and parcel of who we are as an individual as we walk around in what I like to call these little meat suits.
Yeah, we're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. So tell me a little bit about when you first got the patches. Did you put the patches on yourself first, or did you put them first on your mom? What was your and then what did you notice right away as you applied them on yourself and as you applied them on your mother?
So yes, we both started pretty much the same exact time. I didn't really expect anything big because I was already activating a lot of different genes through a different product. So everything was going great. But as I like to tell people, you don't know what you lost until you get it back.
Yes.
Everything is so gradual through our lives as we move through this wonderful experience we call life. And some things kind of slough off and you kind of forget about. I don't really think, oh, I can't sprint, 500 yards and without, losing a sweat or breath, because this is not part of my life. It's not something I need to do. So things this kind of go off the back of your brain of like, whatever. So my mom, she was 85 at the time. And not only was she having troubles breathing, she also had troubles with her memory. She had dementia, and not labeled dementia, which we all know is now diabetes 3. But she also had some heart issues. Her skin, when people usually get in their 80s, gets really dry, very thin, a lot of scabs. She also had nose surgery because she had some cancer on her nose. And her energy levels, were kind of like normal, that of an 85-year-old. So I'm going to focus on her for a minute. So right off the bat, it just happened this way that we got an MRI of her lungs literally a week that she was starting the patches. And it just happened that was the way it was scheduled. And we saw her pulmonologist. And of course, I talked to her pulmonologist and I said, okay, this is what we're doing. And he's like, okay. Not surprising. It's not in their wheelhouse, guys. Medical doctors are not going to get this. It's not their wheelhouse. Not to mention they can't say, oh yeah, go ahead and do that, whether it's vitamin C or anything, because if something does go wrong, then there could be liable. So, but nevertheless, so he's like, yeah, okay, whatever. And then everything happened in 2020. So we didn't see him again until January 2021. Now he usually saw her every 6 months because the growth of the scar tissue was so intense that he wanted to stay on top of it, make sure she has the right amount of oxygen or inhalers or whatever she might need. And in January 2021, we saw him and it was really funny. He's a Russian doctor. And I'm just saying, because I just loved his accent. That's why I had to bring it up. But he's looking at it and he's looking at one side, looking at the other side. And he's just constantly going back and forth. And I'm like, what are you looking at? And he says, I'm looking at last year's CT scan. I'm looking at this year's CT scan. And I'm like, okay, why are you going back and forth? He goes, because they don't look any different. He goes, and I expect change. And of course, I'm sitting in the background going, because no change is good change, right? At least she doesn't have more growth. So I'm just really ecstatic about this. So with that, say again?
You stopped the decline.
Yeah, exactly. And so he, like I said, always used to see her every 6 months. And with this, he said, you know what? I don't have to see you for another year. So again, I'm like, yeah, this is good. I'm happy. This is really good. Now fast forward. Now let me back up there. Now between June of 2020 and January 2021, we're talking about a woman who didn't really remember to put them on all the time because of her memory issues. And I want to say probably around 5 months, it finally got to a point that as often as she was putting them on, because, we would call her and she'd go, okay, yeah, I've got them right here. okay, bye. And then she put it back down. It wouldn't happen. But nevertheless, around 5-month mark, I guess she'd been using them enough where it started to affect her memory. And she was reminding me of things to do that I've forgotten to do. So that was really cool. And so she basically started wearing them, every single day as prescribed by David Schmidt. And so then we had those results in January of 2021. Now fast forward to last month. This is the big crescendo with my mom. We saw another doctor, another pulmonologist. She just had a next, CAT scan. And then the pulmonologist said, she doesn't have COPD. We're like, yeah, she does. I mean, it's been documented since 2009 and 11 and 15, et cetera, on and on. I'm like, yeah, she does. And he goes, well, looking at the CAT scan, she doesn't have COPD at all. And I'm like, that is awesome. That is awesome. And her heart numbers are all really good. She's 88 years old now, and she does still have issues that we still have to attend to. But nevertheless, I know that she lives in a senior complex. And during 2020 and 21, when everybody was getting sick, she didn't even have the memory of washing her hands. She'd go around and say hello to everybody. She never wore a mask and never washed her hands. And I'll have to say, this application kept her healthy. She's healthy as a flippin' ox. I kid you not, man. She's amazing.
Yeah, that is absolutely wonderful. And so for people who aren't aware, I really want to talk again, bring up the fact that the Fantastic Five, and that's a label that I came up with just because as I learned and began to use them with my patients and clients, I realized that these are the 5 foundational patches that take care of all the systems of the body. And then if you have sleep issues, there's a patch for sleep issues. If you have very acute pain, then we have one that turns off your pain receptors. Then you need that. Not everybody needs that, but everybody does need to repair and restore the antioxidant levels. And your immune system is critically important, especially as we age. The amount, David Schmidt, the inventor, who is the scientist who was originally, he was commissioned by the Department of Defense to create this little patch here this one's called Energy Enhancer. So this increases your energy. That's why it's called Energy Enhancer. But one of the things that he talks about, and we know this from science at large, is that as you age, your glutathione levels drop. Glutathione, they say that melatonin is like the supreme, there's like a debate between melatonin being like the most important antioxidant in your body that your pituitary gland produces, and that it regulates your circadian rhythms, your sleep cycle, melatonin, serotonin. Mel puts you to sleep, Sarah wakes you up in the morning. But then glutathione is found, the argument is that no, glutathione is the most important master antioxidant. Why? Because in all the 56 trillion cells in your body, glutathione is present in every one of them. In every cell, every organ system, and all your muscles, glutathione is present. It's a master antioxidant that your brain signals your liver to produce and to manufacture it. And then your liver goes, okay, we've produced the glutathione. Now we're going to release it into the bloodstream so that all the cells have glutathione levels. And to the degree that you have high glutathione levels will determine your longevity. It will also determine how well you detoxify your body, and will also determine the degree to which you have antivirals to protect you against germs, viruses, and bacteria. Now, sidebar here, because it is a master antioxidant and it is your detoxifier. I want you to think about this for a second, because your germs and viruses, bacteria that harm the body, that are not good to your body, as far as your body is concerned, and as far as your stem cells and your brain is concerned, that is a toxin. If it's a germ, a virus, or bacteria, it's a toxin. It needs to be purged. It needs to be released through the body's waste system, which is perspiration, defecation, and urination. You sweat, pee, and poop it out, basically, and you exhale some of it. But most of it is perspiration, urination, and defecation. So that to say that this little glutathione patch, actually, I'm going to show you, because a lot of my people, we have them on the Fantastic Five, and we'll have the mother stem cell, the daughter stem cell, glutathione, carnosine, and eon, all in a row like this. This glutathione patch, this boosts, and my friend here, Wendy can vouch for me, and we know from the scientific studies that as soon as you wear this glutathione patch, within the first 24 hours, your glutathione levels are increased a minimum to 300 to as high as 600%, which is innate to your original blueprint in your stem cells that you were conceived with. Just from wearing this patch. If you just were to wear the mother and the daughter stem cell activation patch and you weren't to wear the other three master antioxidants, it would be a 30% increase, which is very needed and very welcomed. But if you actually add the glutathione patch, now it's a 300% increase. And that's why her mother, who is at the highest risk, should have caught something if she's not washing her hands, if she's not wearing a mask, she's not doing any of the things that you're supposed to do to protect yourself from germs, viruses, and bacteria. She should have been the first person that was compromised, because with COPD and some of these other high inflammatory conditions, she's predisposed. But guess what? She had this protection. And really, we could single-handedly really point to this. Wouldn't you agree, Wendy, that this was her primary?
I hate to do this, but I also am very transparent, and I will be truthful. My mom is not on glutathione because of her age. So it is my practice that if somebody is above the age of 65, unless they're extremely healthy, I do not use the glutathione patch because they can detox way too fast and they are extremely unhappy for their life. So if I do use the glutathione patch with anybody above that age, we slowly introduce it in. So with my mom, actually, I want to go back to the glutathione patch though, guys, which Dame, you might already know, but glutathione also, what it does, it helps combat pain, but it also helps grow more, it helps if you broke a bone, it can actually increase osteoblast in that area. So in other words, a friend of mine, she just broke a bone. She also went ahead and tore some ligaments in her ankle. And man, we're just loading up the glutathione patch right there. And she said that her pain alone just went down like 3 notches. And she's healing faster than the doctor ever. He's like, what are you doing? This is insane.
How is that even possible? So
exactly.
So in your mom's case, just wearing was she wearing the mother and the daughter stem cell activation patch?
She's kind of like, well, in the beginning we did, because we didn't have the daughter stem cell patch back in 2020, because that just got released last year.
Yeah.
So she was using the primary one that, activates GHK copper peptide. And then she was also, of course, on the one that activates certain genes to actually bring down your inflammation. She also was on this sleep patch that increased melatonin in the system. She was also on a patch that increased carnosine at nighttime. I had her pretty much on everything. She also was on a patch that actually brings down your oxidative stress and also increases your epithelial peptide, because she had that lung issue, right? So we really want to address the tissue lining within the lungs, and that's epithelial layer. Mm-hmm. And she also had not Crohn's, what's the diverticulitis? Yeah. And her diverticulitis, she has no symptoms of that any longer, because, and the one thing I can think of, well, can't really say, well, it was that patch. I'm sure it was a combination of all of them.
It's a combination, because your body's a delicate balance of chemistry. And I tell people to think of their bodies. If you were to visualize your body, just think of like thousands of little test tubes that have different levels of fluid in them, and every millisecond they're going up and down in fluid levels. Is based on your respiration rate, what you eat, what you drink, etc. Those levels are constantly trying to balance and to keep you into homeostasis, which is a balanced state, so that you're happy and healthy.
Mm-hmm. Wow. But now she's on every single patch, I think, that we have, in truth, every single one, and she's doing great. She's just like, I'm bored. Somebody's got to come. I'm just bored. And she's 88 years old. She's like, I want to do something. Let's go. I'm bored. She's full of energy and just wants to get up and go. And so it's really great to see. Like I told her, I said, Mom, because her soulmate has already passed. And I said, I know you don't mind passing. You have no qualms passing. I said, and that's great, but you want to make sure you have quality of life while you're here. And I really do believe, beyond a doubt, these are giving her quality of life.
That is so fantastic. Is there any, I know that you've been, you've been using the patches for 2 going on 3 years now?
Yeah, actually within a month, it'll be a year, or 3 years, sorry.
Okay, fantastic. So is there any story that you've used directly with any of your patients and clients that you want to share that really stand out, that you think people what would benefit from hearing about? Because it seems like every day we get calls, videos, voice messages, just text messages of people. I had a really funny one which I'll share. I want to hear of what you might have that might be encouraging and inspiring for people to hear.
And Dame knows this, and perhaps if you're interested, reach out to her. We do have a patching podcast that happens Monday through Friday where volunteers just literally come out of the woodwork saying, I want to share my story because I want, the humanity is coming back into this world where they want to share their stories so other people can benefit and learn what this can actually do for you, for them, for anyone else. And it's really restoring their health. It's giving them a new lease on life. There's a few stories that, I do share, but while a lot, and I'll share those stories, but somewhat, they're so sensationalized. It's like amazing, right? It's absolutely amazing stories, but everybody's body's different and everybody's body will respond differently. Just like Dane went ahead and said, you have those little valves that continually going up and down. We don't really know what's going on in our body. We have a little blood test that's like literally 3 seconds out of 365 days of the year. That is a snapshot of what's going on in our body. And it's nothing to really, it's more like guidelines. It's nothing to say, oh, this is what's going on. No, you have no idea. So, for one person, it might go in one direction, another person might go in the other, because the innate intelligence of your body is sending these stem cells where it needs to go first and then on out to other systems. So one of the stories that I share, and I remember the gentleman, actually 3 stories. I remember the gentleman so well. He was a roofer. And he was on top of a roof, a 2-story house. He fell and must have thought he was a cat because he landed on his feet, but he crushed his ankles.
Oh, man.
No.
Fractures.
And 26 surgeries, finally got cadaver bones. And the doc said, you'll never be out of pain and you will always be using a wheelchair. And somebody went ahead and, lent him some patches to use on both ankles for 5 days. For him, after 5 days, he was free of pain. So he went in, placed his order, and he was sharing his testimony, I think 18 days later. And he said, no, not 18, like 3 weeks later, onto the patches. And he says, guys, and you could beaming, guys. He was beaming a smile. It was really beautiful. And that's what really touches us, right? When you can feel somebody else's joy, just like
the relief and the gratitude and appreciation.
Yeah, yes, it is just amazing. And he goes, guys, I am not in pain. He goes, I just walked an 18-hole golf course. I'm not in pain and I'm not using a walker, no assisted device. And it's like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. It's undescribable. The feeling that you get every time you get those phone calls, those voice messages, those people who say, it's like, it'll only take a minute. I got to tell you something. You're not going to believe this. You get on the phone, the joy and the love and the relief and just, it's like exhilaration. It's like this electric energy almost that comes across. And that's so extraordinary. 18 holes. He's basically all day, golfing all day to do an 18-hole course.
I mean, but think about it. He probably has been, couch bound for 2 or 3 years. So it's like, I'm going to go live life. And that's what it's all about. You finally get to live the life you want to live. That's the beautiful part about it. Another story was a man, and he probably was in his late 20s. And he said, I've been depressed and unhappy, and forgive my language, guys, but he says, I've been a bitch to everybody. And he goes, and I just didn't realize how angry and miserable I was. And he goes, and somebody shared, the stem cell activation patch. We also have a patch that balances out dopamine in the system. And he said, I was on that 10 days. And he goes, it was just like something just took all this heavy anger and just lifted it. And he started crying. And I'm going to start crying too, because just thinking about his testimony. And he just started crying. He goes, I am so grateful because I love life now. And he goes, I love people. It's amazing. He goes, I've been granted and gifted a gift. And that's just another beautiful story.
That is a beautiful story, especially he's in his 20s. Now the rest of his life, instead of having that dark cloud and that heaviness and that pain point physically and emotionally, he's free from that. What a different life experience. Everyone who comes in contact with him, what a profound change for another. It looks like it's just one life, but it's really many lives that are affected for each life that we, affect with this.
Absolutely. 100%.
Did you have one more?
I do. So the last one, I just actually saw it today and I put it up on my Facebook feed because I just came back around. So I'm just going to pull it up real quick, folks, just so I just don't quote it incorrectly.
Mhm.
So her name was Angela. And if you want to, I can even show you a picture of
Yeah,
her
please
because
do.
so there's Angela. There we
Okay.
go. Okay. So Angela was borderline type 1 insulin resistance.
Ooh.
And she was using anywhere from 30 to 40 units of insulin per day. And in just 20 days of using the stem cell activation patch, um, her insulin went down to that. No, I think that's right. Using only, I'm sorry, I take that back. In 18 days of using the stem cell activation patch, her insulin usage went down to 20. And what the doctor said, she's no longer on borderline type 1 insulin resistance any longer. So that was just like a wow. And honestly, her story, that is just a tip of her iceberg. She was one, you think, and God bless anybody on here is listening who has been having issues, been feeling life to its really depth in the dark night of the soul for a long time. But when you see and hear some of these stories that are shared, I mean, she got on, she said, literally, and I think she was like 34, and she's like, well, at 4 years age, da da da, and then at 5, and then at 7, and then at 12, and then, I mean, she was just going on to the point where I'm looking, I'm going, oh my Lord, if that were me, I don't know if I'd probably want to resign life because it just like so much was on her plate of heaviness that was just like life was going against her. And pretty much all of it was gone within a whole month to 2 months of being on the stem cell activation path. I mean, again, another one to make you cry. It was just wow. And again, though, guys, this affects everybody differently.
It
But
affects everybody, yeah. But think
yeah,
about all the energy, time that she has now available to put into her passion, something that fulfills her instead of something that's draining her, and to try to abate that. Now, all that energy, that focus, and that time can be put towards whatever her life's passion is, whatever makes her joyous, whatever her purpose and mission. She's free now to go after that and explore that. And think about what an incredible blessing she can be to so many others now. Oh
yeah.
my gosh, those are absolutely fantastic stories from the guy with the double broken ankles. He's lucky he didn't break his back or his neck. He could have
Oh,
easily done that. But wow, to go from not being able to walk basically for 3 years and being in constant pain to walking an 18-hole golf course, that's like a full day of golf, as many of you know. And the insulin resistant type 1 diabetic. I got to say, I have somebody who's a type 1 diabetic, and in 17 days, for the first time in 14 years, his highest glucose level was 470 when he was 474 when he was diagnosed. He had never been under 100. And on day 17, he was 97. He called me up all excited. In fact, I'm going to see him next Tuesday. He called me up all excited. He goes, "You're not going to believe this. My insulin level is just 97." Now, this was in the second week of October. Fast forward to today, it's been between then and now, it's been 97 to 109. Steady, steady, steady the whole time,
that's
which is
nice.
absolutely incredible.
That is awesome. Yep. Another life.
Another life.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna share one that is kind of funny, kind of a little highbrow, but it's a true. It's a text that I just got today. Today's Thursday, April 13th. It was this afternoon at 1:20, 12:10 p.m. So I'm gonna just show it to you here. It's kind of funny. It says, "By the way, customer called." This is to one of my gals in Texas. She says, "Customer called me, asked if the patches make you horny." I cracked up. I told her it does increase libido. Her husband is loving her. So, my friends and gems, when your body is returned to a younger, healthier state, your hormones and everything are going to be in balance. If you're a red blooded human being, then of course you're going to have your hormones are going to get into check. Everything is going to get into check. So, you're going to be vibrant and growing and striving. So, that is just another effect that the patches do have. It's all, but it's in proper balance, it's not out of whack. So, is there anything else that you want to leave this broadcast and our viewers and our listeners with?
Well, I'm sure the listeners are probably thinking what I experienced. And so I'm just going to kind of give you bullet points.
Beautiful.
Within 5 days, my head hit the pillow. I was out for the whole night. And I was getting up several times to use the restroom. And that is still the same way as long as I stay completely hydrated, and drinking water is so important. And honestly, when you think you're drinking a lot of water, you're probably still not drinking enough water. So you really should, and you can ask Dame about what the actual amount of water to drink is proper. Around day 10, my skin started to be resurfaced. So your skin is the largest organ in your body, and it started to resurface. So I would already hit menopause. And so my skin used to be baby soft and smooth and, hold moisture and have great elastin, et cetera, et cetera. And that was completely going away. And by day 10, it was starting to resurface, and that continued all the way through to day 45. And now my skin is exactly as it was when I was in my 40s. It holds moisture, it's soft again, and the elastin has definitely improved. I actually tore my meniscus in my knee, and I learned that about September. So mind you, I got on the patch in June. So in September, I learned that I tore my meniscus. And of course, you got to have surgery. And I'm like, of course, no, I'm not. And so come December, we do have a protocol for healing knee issues. It is using, of course, the patch that increases stem cells, the patch that decreases inflammation, the patch that increases glutathione, and also taking large doses of vitamin C. After 5 days of patching my knee, I was able to deep knee bend. I was able to walk, and I continued that protocol for a good 6 weeks. And to this day, I can deep knee bend without a problem. I have no pain whatsoever. It feels fantastic. Then also around November of that same year. So I'm highly allergic to poison oak. Poison oak is a plant here in California whenever you go hiking. It's similar to that of poison ivy for those that are on the East Coast. And if it just touched me briefly on my skin, it would go systemic immediately into my bloodstream. And I would end up blowing up. Look, I have leprosy all over my body, and I would be head to toe for 6 weeks. I'm that allergic. I mean, we would get cortisone shots. I mean, actually, I can't do cortisone shots. I'm allergic to that too. So I couldn't do that, but I could do a K-pack and, prednisone pack and definitely pop that up. And so we went hiking one time, and my grandson does what grandsons do best. They get themselves in great predicaments where I have to go, bail them out. And of course, he's surrounded by poison oak plants. And so I'm like, okay, there goes 6 weeks of my life. I'm not going to be able to do anything. Kid you not, guys. And that's 6 months being on the patch, 5 months being on the patch. It popped up, just 2 little dots, and that was it. Nothing more. It didn't go anywhere else in my body. And I'm kidding. I was near tears. I was crying because, like, oh my gosh, I can hike again. I can go out in the woods. I was really happy. I always basically gotten palpitations in my heart, like it'll go fast and then it slows down, then it goes fast again, etc. And that used to happen at least 3 or 4 times a month. And now, honestly, I can easily say it's about 4 weeks apart, if that. So that is definitely improved with the rhythm of my heart, or whatever causes that within the nervous system. And I know I'm forgetting about several other things, but those are kind of my highlights. And it continues. The thing is people think, do I want to stay on the patch? Because it's like a certain amount of time to be on that patch. Well, if I get off the patch, does that mean my knee is no longer healed and it's going to go back to torn? No, it's healed. It's done.
Yeah.
But my body will no longer be making the GHK copper peptide. That means my body will no longer be reversing those damaged cells to brand new cells. So of course I want to continue it, because every day you're inhaling, ingesting, placing on your body over 700,000 chemicals a day. So you, of course, want to try to get those chemicals out either through a patch that increases glutathione, along with that, a patch, of course, that increases your stem cell activity. I'm always going to stay with it. And every single day, I basically, oh my gosh, I didn't used to be that. I'm working out. Honestly, this is another one, and I'll leave it with this. So my job is to sit down all the time, and I'm now 58, and if I don't get up and get moving, I'm going to regret it in 5 years, because that's going to be really painful to get back in shape. So I started off really nice and easy, 4 days last week, just doing cardio. This week I've been doing cardio and doing some machines and some weights. And I started jogging this week. Now, mind that's only 5 days, guys. 5 days of working out and jogging. And the daughter patch that Dane talked about, that is a miracle patch. And I love that patch because it helps your body make new muscle. It helps actually prevent your muscle from atrophying, which means going away after you've worked out with it. And Dame, I'm knocking on wood. I feel really good. I'm recovering really good. I'm not feeling like, oh my God, I have to take Epsom salt baths for 5 hours. I don't have that. I'm feeling strong. I'm amazed actually, because my heart beforehand, I kid you not, going up the stairs, sometimes my heart would pound and I'm out of breath. And I'm like, oh gosh, this means I really have to do some cardio. But I'm really, it's this heart is getting strong so fast. It's been amazing. It's been amazing.
That's extraordinary. So just the fact that you mentioned that you had torn your meniscus and 5 days, just 5 days later, you were actually able to do a knee bend
Mhm.
and to do like a knee dip. That's like absolutely incredible. Um, that there's no question about it that it's as a direct result of wearing the stem cell activation patches, enough of the tissue had been replaced and repaired over the 5 days that you were able to in fact have strength, mobility, and flexibility
Mhm.
to actually be able to perform that action and to do so pain free.
Yeah.
So that is really very encouraging, very exciting. So we're getting here to the bottom of the hour here, and Wendy, you have blown me away with the wealth of information and experiences that you've shared with us about yourself, your mother, and these three other individuals as well. And I love your bullet points. I'm a bullet points girl. I
I
love to.
love it.
I think that it's so much easier for people to learn and to absorb and retain information looking at things from bullet points. So thank you for sharing your bullet points with us. And if anyone here is interested in getting more information, we would love, absolutely adore to provide you with any information that you seek. Get back to the person who referred you to this video. You can always go to startx39now.com. Nothing for you to buy on that. That website is strictly dedicated as a portal for you to get education and information, including the over 90 independent scientific research studies that have been completed from all sorts of independent research labs throughout the world. You can check those at startx39now.com. We also have two 2-minute videos on there that you could see what the patches are, how they work. And then at the bottom, there is a reel with some testimonials, and we also have a link with we have 130 patents, but only 120 of them are posted on that site. So get back to the person who referred you to this video. If you found this video on YouTube, or if you found it on Wendy's Facebook page or my Facebook page or any of our social media pages, do reach out to us. We are passionate about sharing information with you and educating you as to how this might be of benefit and a great resource for you to repair and restore your body. And at least you'll have enough information to make a good decision for your health and well-being so you can take the next step. Now, the chances are good and they're really fantastic if you get started. But if you don't get started, it's 100% that they'll stay the same or get worse. Of course, the choice is yours. No one can make that choice for you other than you. Wendy, thank you, my friend and gem. I hope to see
Oh,
you soon again. I think I'll see you
absolutely.
at Tampa. Are you going to be going to Aruba? Nope. Nope. Okay.
Nope, not going to Tampa, not going to Aruba, but I will be down the Florida one in, was that in June, I think, or July?
So I think something, it's either June or July. So, okay,
Yeah.
hopefully we'll see you soon. See you in about the next 90 days, it sounds like. So it
Yeah.
sounds awesome. And as always, I say ciao for now, my friends and gems. Bye.
Bye.